Okay, soldiering on here because I think it is going to take some time. The Lunars launch 3 different attacks. One a pure spirit attack here. We got the bat over here that's going to help us. That could eat something right away. And then I guess we'll continue from there. And other than the Lunars attack, the spirit attack here, these attacks were both singularly successful. You can see the capture of the horses. Those are going to improve the speed of the mounted units. I have some heroes to check though. Okay, this one's dead. This is Iron Hoof. Oh, jeez, I never used his ability either. I could have immobilized all the cows. However, the twins survive, and they've got to go to the nearest. That'll be here. And we're continuing onward. I'm not sure how much I'm interested in throwing spirit support anywhere for the lunar defense. I've got some in both of these stacks. They're out of range of these guys. I don't see much that I can do with that, as was the case previously. So I'm happy with what I've got there. You know, even though the Lunars have taken a major hit backwards earlier in the game, and they're still heavily outnumbered, they've got some powerful little stacks. Of course, the counter blows are always heavy. The attack is so potent in this game. And, you know, if it's your turn, I haven't really figured out a defense. Terrain, yes, it reduces the losses you take, and if you get kind of lucky, you can swing back and hit what attacked you harder. But it always feels like there's some opportunity to launch an attack if you have any numbers, and yeah, I don't know. we'll see whether or not the counterattack can be handled correctly by the Sartor or by the independents here. One thing is these, you know, improved movement. It's a great thing, but if I go charging around and try to position myself to grab some of these hexes, the game still goes to the end. So in the end, you have to defeat the enemy army, and these are not terribly great defensive locations. It's not like the fortresses where you really want to hit the units before they get to them if you can. There might be a reason actually not to defend far forward, because the independents are trying to attrition the Lunars down as far as they can. It's still not, you know, before I was saying, wow, it seems pretty obvious, but I'm not sure it is all that obvious that the independents have the edge here. It depends on what goes on in this fight. But these guys are within range. First of all, that's not that low. And these guys are within range of the bat. So they're still pretty potent in terms of strength. I've got a defensive terrain. I've thrown everything I can there. Now, I could have pulled back more carefully, but I felt like I have the advantage here. I probably am wrong, though. Now, the more I think about it, but that first strike is so important. However, it means I'm going to be in bad terrain for the response. And, you know, if I don't get a good hit on that first strike, I'm throwing the game away here, perhaps. The other thing is I couldn't use my couple of spirits against this stack because I see there's a 10 right there with a 0 range. That thing can throw defensive magic. It could take my spirits down with me, which is something I'd rather not face. Now, if your spirits are destroyed, though, your mage still has all his defensive power, which is kind of weird. Just because if the spirits are away, he doesn't. But it's like he's lending his power to them. And there are reasons for that in RuneQuest. And then we've also got a major attack on this attempt to get the horses back. Not really. Most of the units in there are archers. So we're going to really rake them over the fire with missile combat before we hit them. But this one I'm a lot more questioning whether or not I can get a good strike in on. Ooh. I'm going to get a 2 DE result on the combat table because of the +1. I see there are herds there. Finally managed to get something. I'm not sure what ancestors are, but I know what herds are, and I know that there are some attached to that stack. Ouch. Herd's not such a bad thing. Remember, the defender gets to choose the casualties. Well, he can take the herd, which stampedes it. So it actually absorbs casualties most of the time. I got kind of lucky here. It got an elimination result, which is a stampede. It could be reduced, but in this case, we don't get the +2 there. We just get a 2 what? I really don't know how. You know, herds provide this sort of weird addition to your stack. Those results did not go well. Not too much lost here. They lost 1 unit here, and over here you can see they lost their herd. Here they also lost a herd. Those herds are kind of funny in terms of the effect they're going to have on the lunars. The lunars can use them to increase their movement, to go grab the things they need that are way back here. But the problem is splitting the lunar forces is not going to help the lunar cause. That'll weaken them, and then the independents could hit one location or the other or whatever. We got that separation here and here. Well, it's the independents who need to defend those territories. If the lunars go down and grab them, well, then if they're spread out, all the independents have to do is grab one of them to take it away. So I don't know how much value the extra movement allowance is going to be as we roll into turn 4 here. And yes, I am totally dragging my feet about it. It's not entirely the game. Some of it is. You know, the newness of the game adds this level of excitement. I enjoy learning a game, playing with it the first couple of times, but then after I've played a game a couple of times, it does get tiring, even though I know, you know, this scenario I shouldn't have done is what it comes down to, because there's not that much addition. I wanted to jump to the full meat of the game, and we'll be able to do that soon enough, I suppose, but I was going to be dragging my feet even if it was the full game, probably. So again, one of my people who is more familiar with the game pointed out exactly what the back of the superhero chits is for. The heroes are more normal. The superhero back is when they go berserk. And you can see it's actually stronger in all ways. Instead of this infinity, which is a pure protection mode, they've got this 20 strength spirit magic. Now, it's got a range of 1. This is a little different from, I guess, how magician's spirit magic works. Basically, if they're launching an attack, well, we'll look at it here. The superhero transcends mortal limits and becomes like a physical spirit. The superhero is turned backside up to indicate its status. The berserk rage lasts until the scapegoat is killed. You must move as close as possible to the scapegoat and then have the superhero attack the stack if possible. The superhero must attack both through spirit magic and melee, with the exception that if the defender has an infinite magic factor, the superhero doesn't have to make the spirit magic attack. I'm assuming that that spirit magic attack, although it's coming from range 1 or whatever, is going to have a response coming to it as well. So anyway, I did the last scenario wrong, but that's okay. Ready to start with the lunars. Kind of a tough choice, but I could get everybody in on Androgynous' stack. I'd love to knock him out of the game. That would pretty much ensure the game for me as far as I'm concerned, having the only superhero. Jariel still exists, I hope. I know. She got killed in one of them. The other option would have been to attack these, but I figured, well, I can use my spirit combat on them. The one thing that's kind of iffy here, I might have been better off, and maybe I want to do this. Positioning the bat here, kill the manticore with the bat, use these to try to wipe this out. But the problem then is I won't have enough force to probably knock her out, out of the combat. And yes, I know they is considered more polite, but I can't deal with the singular plural aspect. So for something that's dual gender, I find it very easy to use that term. Okay, and then here, this is an iffier attack. This is a fairly big stack here, but I think that first strike is going to help me take it on. And I'm, of course, trying to kill the Manticore there using magic. Over here, it was kind of a fair battle. I think I lost 1 unit. Some herds were scared off by the archery fire. Remember, the defender gets to choose the herds. Herds can be skipped, I think, in the order of attack. So putting them on top of your stacks doesn't particularly do you any good defensively. Then over here, we see both the heroes have gone. So one was here, the superhero, and the hero here. Let's roll for the hero. This is the queen. She's okay and has to run somewhere. Well, she can run to the hex she died in, and that's fine. But the other one is also okay. His nearest, or its nearest hex is over here. So yeah, I mean, I did like 46 hits, and luckily there was no terrain, so I was able to wipe out that stack actually. Yeah. So the 20 is not as potent when it's not in some sort of terrain that, you know, makes it more valuable. But you can see I still haven't gotten rid of that superhero, which is really what I need to do to absolutely be certain of things. But I'm trimming away those independents pretty quickly, and we're getting a pretty good jump on things. I gotta be kind of careful, but time comes out to 10 on this one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because the next two are 7 and 8. They've got the scenario by number, and I'm not sure the number is actually present in any of these. I guess 18.1 gives you 1. So indeed this would be 0.6. But I remember them more by the name, I guess. No biggie. You can see the independents kind of pushing their way forward in a way that they're almost abandoning everything to the Lunars. Now, like I said, the Lunars have to hold all 4 positions, so it's a little harder for them to defend all the locations if there's any force out there under the independents. But basically, I'm trying to save these guys who, because of zones of control, can't get out of where they are. The result is kind of mixed here, not too good. The attack destroyed... The spirit attack destroyed the units here, so it doesn't get a chance to advance. These guys, fighting against them, missed completely. We got a kill through the hero, and some of these were all archers of various types. Killed at least 1 unit of archers as well, maybe 2, I'm not sure. And the hero ended up surviving it, but not a good result for the independents, and that pushes us to Dying Day, and that means we got to worry about feeding the bat. What's cool about feeding the bat? Herds. I can feed them herds. That doesn't really hurt me, not in the same sense that giving them actual units does. If possible, though, I would like the bat to eat something of the enemies, but if I'm unable to find that, I don't have to worry about that constant threat of the bat just, you know, eating my army when it comes to here, or building up a huge deficit and then dying and eating my army. I very much like the bat being able to eat the enemy even after the Black and Dying days. The thought of the opposite is repugnant to me, knowing what I do about the bat from Glorantha. So I cannot interpret it that way. Alright, the Lunars, and let me make sure I've got decent magic here, yeah. The Lunars launched a bunch of mages against here to reduce this. I think I've got this pretty well under control, trying to run away with these guys downward. Just, you know, prevent the attrition war from going against me ever. Same with these kind of pulling away. Unfortunately, these guys were out in the plains, which means there's something of a target. Another opportunity would have been to leave them up in Winterhome, where they have a stronger defensive position. But, you know, I just feel like I need the force against the other units. Now, as far as I know, I had 4 places I had to take. Now, Winterhome, Rich Point, or Rich Post, and Wild Temple were 3 of them, but I can't remember what the... Oh, I have these 2. That's what. It was 5, not 4. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so actually the bat is now the scapegoat. And I gotta put the bat on top if that's the case. At least at this point, because the scapegoat's always known. Doesn't really affect anything because before combat or anything where stacking matters, you're allowed to restack. So, it killed the twins permanently using its exotic attack, and therefore it is the target. Now, this causes some definite issues because so the way this is worded, the Berserk Rage, the superhero transcends and becomes like a physical spirit. Does that mean I get the chance to target and direct my attacks against the bat? Or is it something else? You know, because a physical spirit, one of the things that it can do, if I recall correctly, it's got its own kind of special attack type, not the normal melee. And it happens on its own. Targeting the units, and the bat would be fairly easy to kill under those circumstances. That would be a pretty severe blow against the Lunars, actually. Which is probably a mistake to pick off that unit, but hey, you know, shit happens. I think that's what's intended here. But I'm not sure, because again, the way these things are described here doesn't sound like a physical spirit anymore. When we go over to the superhero ability, must move as close as possible to the scapegoat. In combat, he must have the superhero attack the stack containing the scapegoat if possible. Both spirit magic and by melee, not by physical spirit attack mechanism. So, and the spirit range factor here, however you might want to try to interpret that, seems to indicate that it's an attack by range 1. So I feel like he's still going to operate as a normal hero in a lot of ways. He just has this very high movement allowance, and now he's no longer immune to magical attacks, but is quite potent in making. Half the attacks the Independents are making, I had to leave these behind. These guys got in range to throw a magical attack. Note that there's no leadership here anymore. Before there was a 2 exclamation point, but luckily I have this horse queen here to add to my leadership. So we're opening things up with the chaotic magic. Remember, the bat's in here. In fact, it's the problem. And it gets to eat something, except this is still a superhero and can protect 3 other critters, so that's not going to happen. Now we go to spirit magic, and that's where this is going to throw in. And you know what? I should have thrown... I used these spirits over here to attack this. I should have thrown them into here. I am going to protect the bat, among other things, from spirit magic. I'll protect these 3, along with the superhero from spirit magic. And yes, you end up crapping around with your things. That means I've got a lot of defensive spirit magic. The 20-point attack, and we're going to play this sucker out because this is, you know, probably a key moment in the game. The 20-point magical attack, which would have been, I think, a 31 if I threw those in. goes against the rest of the stack. Now, these are simultaneous, actually. 31 at 5. I'm going to be doing 23 hits to them. Meanwhile, they come back with, it looks like 10. I don't think anything else has any combat. Okay. Actually, I don't have to protect the bat. The bat's immune, so I'll protect this thing as well. So with only 10, I'm going to hit like 23 hits. I'm not going to do crap to that, and that's going to kill this, but I also have enough to hurt that, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. I gotta look up to see how herds are affected by spirit combat when they're taken as casualties. Probably a stampede, but maybe this is one of the few things that can actually destroy. Luckily, there's no, you know, you look at this game and everything's so full of exceptions that you gotta look everything up anyway, even where there isn't an exception. In this case, there isn't one. The herds do stampede as they usually would. Now I've got my attack to launch. That's going to be, this is, I can lead this hero now because it's no longer a leader. So 21, 25, oh, I got my missile combat there. It's only 2 stars, and I bet you I'm at like -2 for a hill with forest. Yeah. There's no chance of anything happening because there's no herd there. So let's go on to the regular combat here. So I was saying 25, and 6 is 31 for the attacker, and this is going to be at a 2 times combat factor effect. So I'm going to do 10 points of damage. Well, that's not enough to get through the hero here. And again, if this was a physical spirit, which this partially indicates, it wouldn't work this way. And now the counterattack, and of course I could have retreated some units out of the stack if I wanted to. Let's stack these guys the way I want them to be. I'm not sure if I'd rather lose a lighter horse or a heavier horse, but it doesn't much matter. Okay, so I've got 28, 9, 10, 11. That makes 31, 35. And there's 8 more. 43 is my counterattack. And this is going to be half of that, so that's 21 hits. That's enough to hit Androgynous, and that's it. Only on a 1 or 2 will it be defeated. Oh, there goes the superhero on their side. Well, that's pretty much it. We get the scapegoat back on top. Just actually, we don't have a scapegoat anymore because there's nobody to kill it. I don't know where to put this one. All right, well, I think I've got some, move forward another turn. I've got some recovery to do over here, but other than that, unless I want to throw some, oh no, that should have happened. That should have happened earlier. Now, unless I want to throw some spirits down to protect things, I think, yeah, I'm out of range. Okay, no biggie there. So we move on to another turn. I was considering, well, I'd like to protect this. This is the closest thing I have to something that can actually wipe things out. It's pretty much over here. It's just a matter of, you know, once a superhero's gone and you're outnumbered as well, there's just not a whole hell of a lot you're going to be able to do. There's not, you know, like this tremendous superiority of spirit power on these guys either. So I think pretty much at this point, the independents are going to run. If they get a chance, they're going to try to find their way into a place to get protected, because to tell you the truth, the the Lunars could just fortify the 5 locations, and it would be almost impossible for the Independents to ever take one of them. So now they kind of seal up Button into one, and there's just not enough. There's so many turns that they will eventually get worn down and defeated that way. With plenty of time left on the clock, as it were, for me to move into proper locations once I conquer things, or once I defeat the Independent Army, the Lunars are going to wipe out the main stack, and then they're hitting this. It's going to have real defense value, even though it doesn't have a spirit anymore. That's just the way the game works, is you still have a magical defense against these things. I'm leaving their other 2 magicians alone, which could have thrown Spirit Protection over something, but had they done that, they would have been the target then. So I've also covered Wintertop. It's the closest thing, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, we're not that far from being able to run up to either Dunstop or Bagnot. The problem with those, though, is I don't even need the bat to get the full value. Right now, all of these are in good shape in terms of the defenses that the bat provides. This is probably just going to get eaten by the spirits, but that's okay. You live with things like that, right? For complete success here, we actually have these guys fleeing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're outside of range. I threw the lunar magic here if it reaches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, whatever's here would be able to, but nothing else. Never mind. I was kind of cheating there. Alright, these guys are going to launch their attack on this then. They're going to move to here instead, heading towards Bagnot. The main reason being that I get to launch this spirit attack. So I do actually have to roll, and I don't get any result. I'm kind of just tossing these guys. It doesn't really help to have these boxes. They don't do a lot of good because they kind of cover things up. Alright, so now we're on to, it looks like turn 7 out of 10. And it should be pretty easy for the Lunars to actually finish off these last units. But in addition, I want to consider the possibility of moving to grab these kind of far out of the way region locations. Just because it looks like the fight is flying this way, right? Quickly going for a magical attack on this and a physical attack on this using Jar Eel in particular. She's all I could really get there. I've got the bat with it. The bat's very cool because it eats one of these. And by the way, I took my eating out of the way. I forgot to move this forward. So I've gotten the eating successfully. I can eat one of these without a problem. And that's going to be the Moon Haters, which are these guys. And you can see, this is going to be over really quick. Indeed, all the Independents have been wiped out. I've got essentially 3 more turns, so as long as I can get there, right? 1, 2, I don't have to worry about these. I own them already. I own this already. So it's really these 2, and obviously I'm going to make this in 1 turn. 1, 2, boink, 3. And this one as well is 1, 2, 3. It's going to take me 2 turns to get down to the Wild Temple. So that is it. There are no more Independents on the board at all, and it's trivial to take things once that's the case. This one's going up. It's kind of funny. It, you know, because of the randomness, because of all the different opportunities and options in the game, it all kind of leads together so that there was a point where I thought the Independents had this in the bag completely, and I felt this kind of swing at other times in scenarios from this game. I may just not be playing as carefully as I should. You know, I went for something, instead of playing the Independents as defensively capably as I could, I went to kill off some of the Lunars, and that's kind of where it tipped, is that I lost some of those battles. The truth is, I probably should have just tried to hold semi-defensible terrain and keep falling back. On the other hand, these are hills, not mountains. They're not as potent as I saw them in the earlier scenario where I was kind of, well, where I was mistaking the rules and essentially cheating in favor of the defense. It's, you know, there's a big difference between a 1.5 multiplier and a 2-point multiplier. And there's also a difference between how quickly the enemy can move through the territory if, well, obviously if there's a trail or a road going through it, but if it's just 1 point for each hex versus 2 and stuff like that. So actually capturing the territory is a lot easier than it felt in those first games. Still, we see the result of my failed attack, so you can only surmise, well, it could have gone better the other way. All right, the next one should be the big one. And I may do more than one big one, but I'm not sure. I'm tossing about the idea. I don't know if I want to set up another game of this right away. I kind of don't like losing the momentum that I had, but I feel like I'm losing that no matter what, just in terms of fatigue with playing the same game again and again, even though I'm adding new rules each time or new critters or something like that. It's just adding a bunch of new rules. The big game is going to add a whole bunch of new stuff. It all jumps at once to a higher level of detail and complexity, and I'm kind of dreading that.